Welcome to the Podawan podcast. I'm your host, Steve, alongside co-host Dolly. Today, we're going to talk about, is Palpatine a Jango Fett clone?
He is.
Mandalorian, Project Luminous, Project Maverick, all these projects, what does this all mean? Coming in hot. Welcome to another episode of the Podawan podcast, everybody. We got a lot of news, some novelization leaks, and some Project Luminous details that we're going to discuss. Bringing it up first, though, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian real quick. Just got some words that, just seen some news that The Mandalorian Season 2 just finished shooting, and Gina Carano, I believe that's how you say her name, the awesome MMA fighter, she posted something about the shoots, and it's been confirmed that the shoots have finished up. So
You heard that from your sources?
yes, all my sources, aka Instagram, aka Reddit.
Yeah.
So
that's good news, right? I'm sure we'll have reshoots
news.
And delays, and people will freak out. But
yeah, all that. Well, that's I was about to say, like, wow, they actually got through a show without all this bullshit. While, like, you know, Kenobi and which. By the way, another thing that I heard, and I don't know if that was a rumor or not, and I don't know if you've heard this, but supposedly the Kenobi title is actually called Pilgrim. Supposedly.
It's not called Hello There? I thought that was confirmed. That was my source.
General Kenobi.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually, like, not kidding. I've seen that a couple times where in articles that said, "Oh, the new title is Pilgrim." I don't know if it's I don't know if that's actually a thing or not, but
whatever. We'll watch it and review it and love it.
Yeah,
but we'll complain about it. But that's.
I mean, Pilgrim seems like
Star Wars Pilgrim, just Project Pilgrim.
Yeah,
just keep one of these project names. I think they're cool. We should rename our podcast to Project Podwan.
Project Pod. It's the project that just keeps.
And then if anybody says it sucks, it's like, well, it hasn't been released yet.
It's a beta.
We're still working on it.
We're still beta. Oh God, I hate saying that now. Yeah. Oh my God, we should get like a T-shirt that just says Project Podawan. No. It's just like the ongoing, the gift that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. All right, so season 2 filming wrapped.
Yes, Mandalorian
so
season 2.
That's good. That means they're on pace, I would imagine, for October, November.
Yes, I believe so. So
cool.
Good
news. Cool. You said something about another project, right? Project Maverick.
Is that what Project Maverick. Yep. So there was. So the story was.
Yeah, give me the background on this.
Well, you already know the background.
I know, like, but people. What does it say? Yeah.
So Project Maverick showed up on the PSN store, I believe, and it listed Project Maverick, Star Wars, what have you. It has a screenshot. There's
right?
Yeah, it was in beta. It's a non-VR game.
Multiplayer.
What I heard, yeah. Uh-huh. So besides that, there was only was it Jason Schreier, which I'm reading his book right now, by the way.
Really?
Blood, was it Blood, Sweat, and Pixels? It's awesome. Also, it's was it? It's from 2017, so
he's like he's like the Adrian Wojnarowski of video games.
Video games, yeah. He
Sorry.
That book. No. It's all good. So the book, actually, not to get off topic, but the book does cover a Star Wars video game in there, 1313, which.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Never saw the light of day, but the book breaks down a lot of the big video game franchises, and it talks about, like, the struggles that some of these video game developers have, and so, like. What's an example? So, like, Halo Wars was actually more chaotic than people, I think, realized. Destiny is in there. Star Wars 1313.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate.
Video game making seems complicated.
it sounds awful. Like I would never like you would think like growing up like oh that'd be so cool to work for a video game company.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit. Reading
Depends
all
on
this
what you
stuff,
do, I
I'm like
guess.
no, but even like reading stuff on like Nintendo, I'm like yeah, I don't, I'm good. I don't need to like that doesn't excite me at all. And hearing
Yeah.
about the crunch and shit, I'm good.
Yeah, the deadlines and
Um,
stuff. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, fuck that. So. Anyways, check out that book if you're into video games and want to read up more how those video games came to light. It's a great read. Star Wars 1313, like I said,
Yeah.
you get to learn more about that project. That was a shit show.
So Project Maverick, what do we got on it?
So I get that. That's pretty much all we got. So
He said something about it being like an odd. I read something, and again, it's not very descriptive. It's saying that it's a very different, unique Star Wars game. Unique in like they were again, they're trying to explain it vaguely, and so like my paraphrasing of it is very vague, but something about the game mechanics is unique. So I don't think it's going to be like your standard first person shooter or RPG. It's going to be something different. So it'll be interesting to see what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
if there's a beta coming out soon, you would think there'd be a drop at some point of a bunch of information about it. You know what I mean?
Well, it seems like a lot. So just looking at Reddit, I mean, I didn't find any more details. I just someone like asked Jason Schreier if like, oh, is this a smaller project, Star Wars project? And all he said, no, I tweeted was yes. So
yeah, he had mentioned it like months ago or something.
Yeah, that's all I've seen. So like,
well, it could be interesting. I mean, a lot of the newer video game things like Apex and stuff like that are kind of coming out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what they're trying to do. This was a smaller one. It's not the big one that everyone's focused on. So they were able to kind of sneak this one under the radar, and they're just going to drop it one day as a beta, and that's when you'll find everything out about it. So it's exciting. I mean, some of those are the coolest ones, right? To have no idea it's coming out and then be like, wow, I never know I needed this, you know?
True. Yeah. I
So
mean,
that'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's obviously real. If it was on the PSN store, that's a mistake on PlayStation. But that means something's definitely coming out.
I feel like that always happens with big video game franchises.
It does, but usually nobody cares because you already know the video game's coming out. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying with this new way of, like, trying to sneak stuff out. That's when it's weird because you're like, wait, that came out?
Yeah. So
it's probably, it's amazing too, right? It's probably up there for like 7 seconds and 100 people get it and it gets online. You're like, what? I by accidentally hit that code and immediately deleted it and 700 people already know about it. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I think like, was it Ubisoft has always had issues with that. Every time they drop something, fucking, it's already all over the place.
Buggysoft, yeah.
Yeah, Buggysoft, yeah. But
all right, so that's all we have on that. But
that's all we have.
We'll stay up to date on that. Hopefully, who knows? I mean, if it was on the PSN store, we could literally see that this week. The beta. Maybe. So or some information we could. So we'll keep our eye on that. That could be really cool.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, not that I know you went through Fallen Order and everything. Fallen Order is not a game that I would play. So like, if this is something related to like Battlefront or like something in that realm, I would definitely play it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what interests me is Fallen Order was a hit, so they are taking. I knew they took a lot of notes from that kind of thing.
They're already doing number 2,
right? And this isn't Respawn, the Maverick thing, but but it'd be interesting because they did mention it's a multiplayer thing. The thing I read, and maybe that's assuming stuff because betas are typically multiplayer. But if it's multiplayer and it's not really Battlefront 3, Battlefront's still getting updates. They just had another update. So it's not, I would guess, it's not part of the Battlefront or related to Battlefront at all. So, what are we getting? You know what I mean? Some kind of like Rogue Squadron things. I mean, who knows? Maybe some kind of fighting. There's tons of cool games. Maybe it's something like a strategy game. Like we talked about the game that came out on mobile that was really fun, Uprising or whatever, you know what I mean? And they have Galaxy of Heroes, so there's a lot of different things that it could be, especially when they say small project. Maybe it's something a little more simplistic that's not big scale, you know what I mean? Maybe it's more of like a strategy game, which I think would be cool. And
I would hope that it's not exclusive to just PlayStation.
I think I saw Xbox and PlayStation on one of the rumors. Okay. I could be wrong. I mean, everything, again, when we do this, we get mixed. It's very tough that's why we always say like, take our word with a grain of salt. It's tough to remember what is like released and what is a rumor. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, we read
this is
this
everything
shit
is
all the
rumors
time.
on Maverick at this point. So
Yep. So I guess we'll just move on from that. We'll just
yeah,
leave
what it
that, put that to bed, you know. All right, so next up we have. Oh wait.
you want to touch on the Clone
Well,
Wars article real
Thrawn.
quick?
Wait, the Clone Wars
Not
article?
not article, the last episode.
Oh, yeah. So,
Which
yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
yeah.
I'm all tied up right
it
now.
was escaping with Echo. And we got to see a little bit more of the Techno Union, kind of that Devastator device, with the lightning, kind of an escape. And we got to see those Raptor droids finally actually do something, you know, those that have a purpose. The wings came out, which I thought was cool. They had like those Walker ball head things that I think I'd seen something similar in previous episodes, maybe the battle on Christophsis. So it kind of brought out a little bit more on the Techno Union, which I thought was cool. Looks like they're always advancing the technology. And we got to learn kind of how they were staying a step ahead, by, you know, basically hacking into Echo. Echo's kind of a mess. It doesn't look like he has legs. One of his arms is like that computer thing that R2 has that like plugs into sockets, and he's got like plugs all over him, kind of like Matrixy. It's he looks a mess, but
probably should have said spoiler before saying all this.
Well, there you go. That's why, I mean, it's an 18-minute episode. Sorry.
Yeah. So.
But no, and that finishes up the Bad Batch article. Right around the time we launch this, we're gonna have a YouTube video and a little podcast on the arc of what we thought as a whole. So, anything you want to add? I just wanted to get that in there.
No. I mean, yeah, we just we'll have an episode up for our review on the Clone Wars Bad Batch arc, and yeah, I thought it was a good arc. I would highly recommend it, or at least watch the Clone Wars and get into it if you haven't yet, and you're still, you know, kind of not sure if you
this
want.
arc is very reminiscent of what most of Clone Wars is. You get some Jedi action, you get some clone action, you get to learn a little bit about individual battles that were going on. This very well represents kind of like the show, I think.
I will say the visuals in this arc looks 10 times better than the original Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah?
I think so. I think it looks way better.
I didn't notice a huge difference, but I've been watching a lot of them recently, so.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I thought it looked a lot better. At least from what
I'm sure it's updated a little bit. I just have trouble. I'm not a huge cartoon person, so going back and forth between, you know, following up with Clone Wars and watching Rebels and, you know, a little bit of Resistance, so I'm all over the place. So I thought it looked good. I just didn't notice any specific differences. Yeah.
So yep, check out our episode on the Clone Wars Bad Batch arc. That'll probably be up in a couple days, so we'll have it up on YouTube and we'll have it on our podcast services. So moving on, there was another I guess leak or drop of the synopsis of the Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising, which is coming out in, I believe it was October, right? They moved it pretty far out. It was supposed to be out.
Did they move it back that far? I don't know.
It was supposed to be out in May, and then they moved it out to, I believe they moved that one to October.
Yeah, I haven't seen this yet. So what was the synopsis?
So it says, beyond the, I'll just read it. It's short. Beyond the edge of the galaxy lies the unknown regions, chaotic, uncharted, and near impassable, with hidden secrets and dangers in equal measure. And nestled within its swirling chaos is the Ascendancy, home to the enigmatic Chiss and the 9 ruling families that lead them. So right there, be interesting to
learn the structure of the Ascendancy.
Then it goes on to say, the peace of the Ascendancy, a beacon of calm and stability, is shattered after a daring attack on the Chiss capital that leaves no trace of its enemy. Baffled, the Ascendancy dispatches one of its brightest young military officers to root out the unseen assailants. Let's see, a recruit born of no title but adopted into the powerful family of the myth, I think that's how you say it, and given the name Thrawn, with the name of the expansionary...
Mythron Yorodu. Myth is the first part. Yeah, yep.
With the might of the expansionary fleet at his back in the aid of his comrade Admiral Alani. Yeah, it's Alani.
Yeah, that's the girl from the new ones, yep.
Yep. Answers begin to fall into place, but as Thrawn's first command probes deeper into the vast stretch of space his people call the chaos, he realizes that the mission he has been given is not what it seems, and the threat to the ascendancy is only just the beginning. So
Interesting.
it's yeah. I'm actually now I'm intrigued to see what this actually is about.
Yeah, this is a good example of like I wanted Thrawn after Rebels, like where he goes with Ezra. Wasn't super
Yep.
interested in like before, but I thought it was just going to be like before, like in the Clone Wars time kind of thing. I did not know that we were going to get like his whole upbringing and the whole breakdown of the Chiss ascendancy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll get the whole background of the Chiss, and I mean, I think this is going to be more political, if everything, if anything.
Yeah, the thing that like the only thing that bums me out, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they'll get into it, but like the whole Chiss thing in the outer reaches, in the outer regions, in the unknown space, right, with the Grisk and everything being built on the new Thrawn novels,
Yeah,
and the Chiss in general, like open up this whole, it's like an extra galactic thing, and yet where are they in like when the Empire falls, the whole 30 years after that, then the First Order, the Final Order, like where are they? Are we gonna get this large kind of U-turn where they're doing all this different stuff, fighting this whole different battle that whole time, and then 10 years after Rise of Skywalker, when we finally get back to that timeline, is Rey gonna meet? You know what I mean? Like, what are they setting? They're setting up this whole other kind of universe. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
That what? We're just gonna end before A New Hope? Like they just beat the Grisk and it's nothing? Like I feel like there's more here, you know? But
Yeah,
I'm confused
maybe,
at where it's gonna go because we
maybe
have
it's
Rise of
tied.
Skywalker. You know, like what? Where are we gonna go with it?
Maybe it's tied to the High Republic.
Yeah, but that's even going further back, right? I'm saying like forward. Like obviously there was this Grisk thing that they didn't know about. Maybe you're right. Like maybe we learn a little bit about the Grisk then, and maybe they go into hiding, and that's how the whole Chiss ascendancy thing becomes relevant again. You know what I'm saying? But like we still don't have an ending to it. Thrawn disappeared, and we know 30 years after that, or 5 years after that, the Empire falls. Then 30 years after that, we have the new trilogy. So like they still none of that's happened, or if it happened, it wasn't a big deal because no one's talking about it. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, I don't know.
So I wonder. I mean, it's an awesome setup if that's what they're thinking. Like that's where they're gonna bring Rey and Poe and Finn back. Like those storylines. After that, I'd love it. But like, when's that happening? 20 years from now? You know,
I don't know.
Not in movies. I'm just saying, like in general. You know, because seems like they're setting up this again. It's like a parallel universe. So much they're out there. The Republic doesn't venture out there. You know what I mean?
I think this is where I feel this is where my criticism of the Star Wars franchise comes in when you have shit like this.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, no, I know.
Bothers me because it's like you have this huge opportunity with the Thrawn universe, like you're saying,
yep,
and they're just pissing it away. They're like, oh, we'll just have this like Thrawn, the unknown regions. That's like a whole nother universe, no big deal. It won't come into the movies. It won't affect the movies, but it's there.
But then but then don't you feel like it also like if that's the case and it never affected all the way into Rise of Skywalker, doesn't it feel like then the Grisk threat really wasn't that big? So why do we care? Like that's my bummer about it, right? Like if we're gonna write it off and make Ezra and Thrawn win, and I don't even know if that's what they're doing, but like if that's kind of the theory we're gonna go with, and it doesn't end up affecting the galaxy, how big a threat was it? You know what I mean? Like how? Well, so then why should I? Not that why should I care? I'm gonna care. I'm gonna read about it. But I think like we had talked about, like that I thought was the ultimate. You're talking about making up bad guys and Palpatine and all that kind of stuff. Like you had this whole Chiss thing set up. It was always there. Would you have to explain it a little bit? Yeah. And that's not easy in one movie, you know what I mean? But like if you lay the foundation in Force Awakens, you can start, and then all of a sudden you can have this huge Grisk thing and Thrawn and Chiss thing, and it's way more organic, and it was there the whole time. You can go back and read books right now where they were talking about it before A New Hope. That's what that's where I think they missed the mark, because you introduce them. If you can reintroduce Palpatine in the Final Order, like you can explain a little bit about the Chiss and you know what I'm saying? Like in the total new sequel trilogy, you could have explained it gradually and then made it come to life in Rise of Skywalker or the third one, whatever it would have been called at that point. And that's how, this is that whole thing we talk about. Like, then it's explained in the movies, and anyone who goes, wow, that's really cool. Who are those blue people? Or who are the Grisks? There's literature on it. Like,
It's
you can go get into Star Wars. You can go get into the Star Wars books because we've written about it. And that makes the Thrawn novels way more important, and way more people would be, you know what I mean? But it seems like they've left it on the shelf. And now the sequel trilogy's over, so where does it go? That's my biggest gripe right now is I love Thrawn, and I love what they did with Rebels and Ezra, and Ahsoka and Sabine are still out there. Like, these are some of my favorite characters in Star Wars, yet it seems like a dead end, because what could they possibly do that's so important that totally didn't affect the galaxy for 30 years? You know?
I agree. I mean, it kind of sucks in that sense, and you have
like, it's a little bit of a bummer, right?
Yeah, no, it's a huge bummer. I mean, like, Thrawn, the Thrawn trilogy is my favorite trilogy of of Star Wars books. I mean, it's one of my favorite books. The first one is one of my favorite books ever. I mean, I love that book, and just the political stuff in it, and like it between
you learn a lot more about the Empire. Yeah.
You learn a lot about the Empire and what it's like there. I think the writing. See, this is a problem. They have the movies out because they put Thrawn's stuff. Hold on, let me back up for a second.
Yeah.
The first Thrawn trilogy takes place after the movies. The original one by Timothy Zahn takes place after. Oh, you're getting into...
Yeah, that's going to get confusing.
No.
But yeah.
No. I'm just explaining. So there was the original one, the Legends, Thrawn trilogy.
Before Disney bought it, right. This was like the kind of brought everybody back to Star Wars. Yep. It happened after the Empire died, after Return of the Jedi, yeah.
Right. I think they did it right there, because you put it after movies, so there's no impact in the writing of the movies. There's no impact.
You can use it, but you can go forward.
You can go forward.
Yeah, yep.
I think they fucked up here because they put Thrawn in the middle of... between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, actually, technically, Clone War, or is it Revenge of the Sith? Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Right, in that
Thrawn, and you could even argue that with Rebels. I love Rebels, but like, you put the shit between those movies, and now it's like,
it's not even so much that. Like, that's fine because they did a good job, but like the ending, they made them. Like, Kanan's arc's awesome. I think that's great. I think Rebels left off good. The problem is with Thrawn and Ezra, like, and that whole Grisk thing and the whole Chiss thing, if they disappear for the original movies, fine. That only takes place over 5 years. Like, that's no big deal, right?
Right.
Even if they're still out there 5-10 years, like in Mandalorian time frame, still fine, right? But then you put 30 years after Return of the Jedi, you put this new sequel trilogy with a new big bad, and Palpatine comes back, and the whole universe is at stake again. And this whole storyline's never mentioned. Like, how? Like, it seems like... So it doesn't... You're telling me it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That's what the...
No. My point was that you put...
It hamstrung them.
Yeah, you put them in periods that you can't explore because you know what happens. The New Hope and all that shit happens. Why did they do that? Why didn't they put them after, like you're saying?
Well, we know that. Because they had the sequel trilogy and they didn't want anybody to fucking tread anywhere near it just in case they wanted to make something else up. I mean, we know that, you know?
Yeah.
But now we have this super awkward... Before the sequel trilogy came out, even when Force Awakens came out, I was obsessed with the 30 years between Return of the Jedi and... Force Awakens. I thought there was going to be so much stuff in there. Now, because of like the way that it ended and how little they explained about that time period, and like Bloodline just kind of being like, oh, it was the New Republic, like everything was like whatever. It just seems like there's just nothing of consequence that can happen in that time. That's the bummer. It
doesn't make sense.
Like, even if you're into, like, which I am, like, what did Luke do? How did the Jedi Temple get built and all this kind of stuff? It's like, it didn't mean anything because we already know what happens to Luke, and Kylo killed them and it blew up the temple. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so even though they could make that a really cool TV series, you already know what happens. So it's a bummer.
And they're fleshing out some of the details through, like, and this is my other problem, is that they're trying to flesh it out. comics and book, and
Yeah.
which is okay. I get it. They're doing it from a. I shouldn't say it's okay. They're doing it through it's business. They're doing books and comics and stuff, which is cool. But at the same time, it's like,
Yeah, it's a little
come
bit.
on, like you
Yeah.
can't keep doing this. At some point, people are. I mean, you already have a lot of people that are just like, fuck that. Like, there's too much going on. There's too much. You can't just watch the movies and be like, all right, I know everything that's going on in this universe. You have to read the books. You have to read the comics. You
See,
have to play the video games.
I'm okay with that. It's the I think they did it backwards is my complaint. I think they didn't know what they were doing, so they didn't allow anybody else to write books and comics to give the background, right? So now that the movie comes out, and obviously it seems like the people writing the new books and stuff like that didn't know what the movie was going to be until it came out. So now that the new movie's out, now it's like, okay, what can we write that makes Palpatine make sense, makes this make sense, makes that make sense, which seems like what you're talking about. It seems disingenuous because now it's like, all right, we got to explain all the shit that we put on the table. Whereas if they knew the whole time and built off it, all of a sudden a book that came, like, to me, it's like, all right, Thrawn came out in whatever, 2016. And that hinted towards the Empire coming back. Now, all of a sudden, when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, fuck, like then it's cool. You know what I mean? Because then it's more information. But it was already out there, and it proved you had a plan, and it makes the universe feel cohesive. When you can't write anything that touches anywhere near the sequel trilogy, and then it comes out, and it seems all convoluted, whether you love it or not. Like, the storylines are all over the fucking place. You know what I mean? Like, and I like it, but I'm saying, like, they're jumbled. Then you go and write stuff to fill in the gaps, like you're saying. It seems like you just like saw the movie, went, all right, how do we write a comic to make this fucking make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's stupid.
Instead of the comic already being out and you being like, oh, is Palpatine still alive? Are they hinting at something? You know what I mean? And then it coming back, that seems cool. Going the other way seems disingenuous.
Yeah,
or not disingenuous, just like it makes it even more seem or more clear that you had no fucking clue what you were doing.
It drives me fucking nuts. I just don't understand why they
right, because there was a ton like we talked about. There's they even said, and this may have bothered me the most, that JJ almost put a thing about Palpatine into Force Awakens, which bothers me because if they why it bothers me is it's like, I just want to know the truth, right? If you had that planned, like if they had talked about that, the fact that it wasn't in the movie is asinine. Like that they didn't put any kind of setup, because that would have helped out the Palpatine thing enormously. And I'm a person who's okay with it, but I'm saying, like, movie-wise, the fact that if you did know you were going to do a version of that, I know they didn't have the script written, but like if Palpatine was eventually coming back, the fact that you didn't hint at it in Force Awakens is asinine. But on top of that, like, you're saying you knew, and yet doesn't it seem like they just made it up as like, so how could you have known and not set it up at all?
It was,
you know what I mean? I'd rather have them just go, no, we shoot it in. It's like, okay, well, you got lucky, because like you can make that work. I'm just like, the fact that they knew, if that's true, like that was the overarching thing. Like, no matter who directed it, Palpatine was always going to be the big bad.
Yeah.
How do they not hint at that in The Force Awakens? Like, no hint. Like, it doesn't need to. You don't need to like say it, but like you need to set that up.
Yeah, it's. I don't know.
It's more just that to me. Like, I like each individual movie. Rise of Skywalker is definitely my favorite out of the last three. But they feel very much like individual movies. Like, there's not a lot of, the threads don't feel like they go through all three like a trilogy. I think that's my biggest complaint about them, is they just don't seem connected. As individual movies, I'm fine with all of them. And I like Rise of Skywalker the best, like I've said, and I like Force Awakens. And I don't mind Last Jedi. It's just not my favorite. But they just don't seem to want to work together.
You know my thoughts on the trilogy.
Yeah, no, I know, but
I mean, well, speaking of the trilogy, let's
get into the Palpatine thing. Yeah,
Thrawn, sorry, you got put into a fucking sucks. So that's established. I'm joking. So, the last week, there's been a shit ton of talk about the novelization coming out, and there's been a bunch of leaks revealing some of the details, some of the background between some of the background of the scenes in the movies. Um, One in particular about Palpatine. I don't know if you want to kick this one off. I mean, we have different opinions on it, but
yeah, I don't know. I guess I said it wrong when we talked about it before. I don't know that we have different opinions about like the writing of it. This one was weird to me because.
Do you want me to read it? Would that
Is
help?
it long? You can read yeah, sure.
No, it's not. It's not long.
Go ahead.
So here's what out of the book it says: all the vials were empty of liquid save one, which was nearly depleted. Kylo peered closer. He had seen this apparatus before too when he'd studied the Clone Wars as a boy. The liquid flowing into the living nightmare before him was fighting a losing battle to sustain the Emperor's putrid flesh. What could you give me? Kylo asked. Emperor Palpatine lived after a fashion, and Kyle could feel in his very bones that this clone body sheltered the Emperor's actual spirit. It was an imperfect vessel, though, unable to contain his immense power. It couldn't last much longer. So that's what everyone is talking. Well, that's part of what everyone's talking about. There's another passage too about Palpatine's son, which we do see in the movie, like briefly, which is Rey's parents. I'm not going to read that one because that's a little bit longer. But it mentions that he had a son that was an imperfect, I believe it was an imperfect clone, a not quite identical clone. When they were trying to go through this whole process.
Gotcha. So he's been, so long story short, he's been messing with cloning forever. Not
Which
surprising from, yeah, well, right. And that's not even a surprising thing. Like if you've followed Star Wars for a long time and you've read all the EU canon, right? Or not all, I'm not saying like everything, but like if you have a general understanding of the EU canon and how that stuff went, the old Thrawn novels that you were talking about and stuff like that, and have read things like Plagueis and just the overall vibe of the things that still kind of felt like Palpatine. So what I'm trying to say is Plagueis, which is a non-canon novel now. It's like the last one that wasn't canonized. Yeah. Pretty much, as far as I know, I haven't read it in a while, but like from what I recall, it doesn't really negate. It fits into canon, in other words. Like there's really no reason for it not to. There may be some inaccuracies with the way Maul was found from canon, but I get that confused too because Maul was bounced around a little bit. But for the most part, the Plagueis novel could fit into canon without jeopardizing anything, right? Right. And the version of Palpatine that the Plagueis novel projects is dead on what Palpatine is. So in other words, like it's as close to canon as you can get. There's no storyline that like is completely ruined by something else in canon. Like you can pretty much take it as canon. It would be the first book I would tell someone who's obsessed with canon to read after they've finished canon because it might as well function as canon. That being said, Plagueis' whole thing was trying to stay alive, like live forever. And the cloning thing, when you look at it and you take it from the Clone Wars and the movies and stuff, that Palpatine did that whole thing, right? And was very much in charge and put like he also took that wanting to live forever thing from Plagueis. You know what I mean? Like that spirit and that, the whole argument that it's Anakin, they created Anakin and all this stuff, but that's always what he's been messing with. So to find out that he was continually messing with clones is not a surprise at all. And to find out that that's how he kept his spirit, if you want, or however they're going to explain it, makes total sense. So to me, I was surprised that this was such big news because in Rise of Skywalker, that's what I felt like they were saying. Now, the line of it's a clone body, is that what people are freaking out about? I guess, like, but to me, it's just a shell like they're describing. Don't think of it as Jango Fett and Rex. You know what I'm saying? Like they're different people but Rex is a clone, but he has a totally different personality, a different spirit, if you will, I guess would be the easiest way to explain it. That guy in Rise of Skywalker, it may be a different body or a regened body, but that's Palpatine. That's not a different Palpatine. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm kind of like, it's just not as big a deal to me. Like that makes sense. That's how you would come back in the Star Wars canon if you followed it. That would be the most logical way for this to happen. So it's less of a big news for me. That's what I'm confused why it's such a big deal.
I think part of it is, yeah. I mean, I think part of it is the fact that this stuff has to be revealed through a book. I mean, I'm not saying the Palpatine thing, like, you kind of can tell from watching it, obviously, that
right, they show the Snoke bodies and stuff. I think it's relatively logical, but yeah.
It's logical, but like it's like the sun thing and all that, like
even that's kind of logical, right? Like he was messing with it for a long time. That one didn't have the Force. That's why he wanted him killed. Like, so I don't know. It's just a difference of, you're not wrong. I'm just saying it's a difference of opinion. It's very logical, and I think it's what a lot of these books do is they go into more detail and explain it. I don't think that. Do you think you'd enjoy the movie more if you knew that before you saw the movie? Does that make a huge difference to you?
What if
like this information, like, you know that his son is an imperfect clone, so Rey's father is an imperfect clone's DNA of Palpatine, I guess. Like, does it make a difference in the movie to you? Is my question.
No, it doesn't make a difference, I guess, but I think it's my problem is they're doing. We just talked about it. There's stuff to answer questions. And that's what I don't like. I mean, the novelization. If the novelization came out first, just based off a book, like, that's one thing, because you go into detail. Books obviously have way more details. It's like Game of Thrones. The books have more details than the show. This isn't the case. The book is based off the movie. So then some of the things that they kind of danced around, like the Palpatine thing and Rey and all that stuff, all of a sudden they're like, oh, in the novelization, we're going to just answer it. Like, straight up answer it. And that's my problem. That's why I disagree with how they handled it. Gotcha. That's the stuff that I don't like. But in terms of like the actual news, like, no, it didn't. I wasn't surprised. I was kind of like, oh, okay, makes sense. But
so that's where we differ, is more that I don't really see this as a massive explanation. I agree with you. I don't like that after trying to shoehorn things in. This, to me, seems like kind of what was already written, just with more detail. Just like, this is what it was. Like, it doesn't feel to me like, who wrote it? Ray Carson? Is that who?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
It doesn't feel to me like Ray Carson in January, after she saw the movie, went, hey, what if we make Palpatine's son like a failed clone? Like, I feel like they probably had discussed that. It doesn't need to be in the movie. So to me, I'm just saying, like, that's not what I'm talking about with, like, the kind of almost like not retconning is the wrong word, but like going back and explaining stuff to make it make sense. Like, all this kind of, like, it doesn't really change anything in the movie to me. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got. I didn't get the vibe that the son was a clone, but it makes sense now that you say it. That's not really a reach, you know what I mean, for me. So that's not as much what I was talking about, where if they go back and then, I don't know. I mean, I don't have as much of a problem with the movie as you, so I don't need as much, but I don't know. I think for me, all I'm saying is that the news of this is overblown, because everybody's like, oh my God, it completely changed. And it's like, I don't, if it did change something, I understand it, but I don't feel like it changes anything. I feel like it just gives a little bit more detail. You know, for me, for example, like I'm saying, the Palpatine thing is basically what I thought. He was kind of a clone, or using cloning technology. I mean, you saw the Snoke stuff, so that's logical. I think that's kind of what I thought. So that just confirms what I thought. And then the son thing would be something I totally didn't think about, but it's very logical in the Star Wars universe. And he was messing with cloning stuff because that's how he's got it. So that he had a son makes more sense, because now you don't have to get into the whole Palpatine like had a wife or a paramour, which that gets a little messy with, you think of like him, you know what I mean, that he would ever need that. So answer
it through a fucking book. That's my point.
But they didn't need to answer it. My point is, if you needed to answer it, it's weird to go back and then do it. It's not real. I don't know. For me, it's not that important. So like just that they mentioned it in the book, like is like, oh, okay, cool. Like that actually makes sense. If it was like seven chapters to explain this thing or something like that, then I get what you're saying. But I like, for me, again, it doesn't really change the movie, so I don't really see it as going back and like changing stuff. Like it just seems okay. That makes sense. Now we don't need a long explanation about who his paramour was that he had a kid with. It actually makes it way fucking simpler, which is not what they usually do. They make it more complicated than they need to be. But like that's actually a super elegant solution to that. If they did make it up after, good for them, because that's awesome. Just do the clone. You don't have to have any paramour lover wife thing with Palpatine, because that could get crazy. And then he's just like a clone that didn't get the Force, so Palpatine was like, fuck you, like I'm not into it. And the guy was just a normal guy, so he got married and had a kid. You know? It's like that leads me to believe that we don't need another story on Palpatine's kid, which God knows we probably would have got one, you know? But anyways, I think we're both on the same page in terms of like it's relatively logical. You don't like the way it was handled.
No, I just don't. Yeah, I don't have a problem with what it is.
Yeah,
it's just
that's fine. It's an opinion.
Yeah, I don't like how they've been handling these things. Again, it feels like they're shoehorning things in.
Well, they did it to themselves because a lot of it feels shoehorned. So even if something's not, they're kind of on the hook for it. Yep. Yeah.
Right. So like that's why
I gotcha.
When you see this, you're like, well, what the fuck? Now, I don't know. I mean, there was the only thing I will say. The last thing I'll say about it is that there is a small opportunity. They did have a small opportunity to explain more on the shit in the movies if they actually gave a little more time to Palpatine in the first two movies or something.
Well, they could have done. Yeah, they could have done something a little bit more with her parents, right?
Or not even just that. Like just his cloning technology. Like it mentions in the clone. The passage about the clone son. The heretics of the Sith Eternal toiled, splicing genes, bolstering tissue, blah, blah, blah. Talking about the cloning process, like, that would be kind of cool just to learn, like, what if there was, like, more mystery around that?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know who her parents are in Force Awakens, right? But if they had dove into it a little bit and just mentioned something like, oh, like not said that the dad's Palpatine or anything, but just had kind of hinted that he may have been a clone and that's why he's in trouble. Now, all of a sudden in Rise of Skywalker, you would have got some people guessing it, which would have been amazing. But now all of a sudden when it happens in Rise of Skywalker and he comes back, everyone goes, oh shit, he was a clone of Palpatine and that's why he was running. You know what I mean? Then it makes that's all you would have needed to do. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
It would have been way better. And it would have explained so many things and it would have been...
And it would have left some questions because you would have been like, wait, we met Rey's parents and he was a clone, but he was on the run, but they're nobodies. Like we met them and we didn't know them. So it would have added even more. That would have been so perfect from 5 minutes.
Yeah, you could have, and even there, you could have added more. Like the Sith Eternal, who the fuck are they? Like
you could have done. You could have done a lot. More. I'm just simplifying. Like if you had just shown her parents dropping her off and done some kind of hinting that they were on the run because dad was cloned. Like this is super simplification. They'd have to come up with a creative way. But you know what I'm saying? Just have this scene that basically gets a point across that they're leaving her here because the dad's being hunted because he's a clone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then they fly away and you see that same scene where she's with Unkar Plutt. Boom, done. Now for 3 years we're talking about her dad was a clone. What the fuck does that mean? Who is people are still cloning? And why was he being hunted? And it would have answered the Rey's like nobody thing because people would have been like, well, we know her parents and they're a clone. So who was she a clone of? You know what I mean? So it would have been perfect. 5 minutes, right? Yep. 2 minutes.
Yep. So it made complete sense, but
if they knew, that's the point. They probably didn't know, so you couldn't have done that. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we've banged out a bunch of stuff. Our big story, right? Luminous. We didn't get to it last week because it was coming out the day we were doing the podcast.
Yep. So we're diving into our segment, which is now called the CANTINA Talk segment. I don't know if that's catchy enough or not for you, Ollie. Just leave it at that. But
Oh, for our big segment, that's what we're gonna do. The
that's what we're gonna do.
Cantina.
Cantina.
Screwed me up there for a second. Cantina Talk section. Yes.
Yeah.
So our
All
Cantina
right.
Talk section this week is no longer Project Luminous, what was formerly known as, it's like Prince, the project that was formerly known as Luminous, which is now the High Republic.
The High fucking Republic.
Yeah. So what are the whole announcement came, was it only last week, or was it 2 weeks? We kind of missed a week. It was like a week and a half ago.
It was a week and a half ago.
Right. So we're a little behind on this.
Yeah.
So what did you, first of all, let's get off our chest. The whole announcement thing was such a bummer.
Oh my God.
As much as I'm so into this, but like
that?
we're like podcasting and we're told like there's going to be this announcement. We think there's going to be this big thing. And it was just kind of like, oh, there's a bunch of books coming.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait, like what? Like it wasn't, it's hard for me to explain this. I'm so excited about the High Republic and I'm excited about everyone involved with it. This is not a content thing. I'm just saying like the way it was announced felt like and got me hyped. Like there was just going to be this huge, we're going to go through everything and learn all this stuff. And it was just like, oh, there's books coming out. We'll explain a little bit. And here's a little bit of art, which was cool. But just like, it was way too much hype for what it was. It just should have been like, we're releasing like what Project Luminous is. All right, cool. Like it was just such like, I was like up all night, like what's coming out? And then it was just like, boom, like a 2-minute video. And it was like, yeah, there's a bunch of shit we're working on. Here's some pictures. Yeah. And it was like, oh.
By great authors. Don't no less. It's just but
no, it's not the content. I love I love the vision. I'm so excited for High Republic. I'm not shitting on it at all. I think it's awesome. The whole announcement, I guess it's the media of it or the marketing of it, just it seemed like it was gonna be this huge thing, and it was just, hey, we got books coming out. Which is great. This is why I'm having trouble describing it, because it is cool. It just, I thought the announcement was going to be this big thing, and it was not a big thing.
No, not at all. It was weird.
But now that I have that off my chest, so yeah, start to break it down. What do we got?
All right, so they announced, I believe it was 5 different titles. Mm-hmm. So the first one is
all books and comics, right?
All books.
No,
all books and comics.
Phase 1, no TV shows, movies, or video games. This is
and no overlapping shit. So there's nothing in here that's gonna contradict things, which is good. At least they're getting that out in the open, because their last trilogy didn't go so hot.
It sounds like there's gonna be Phase 2 or whatever, and that there'll be a lot more in the High Republic, but this is just the beginning. Yep.
So Phase 1 is known as Light of the Jedi. And the first books or titles that have been announced is Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, my favorite Star Wars author, by far.
That'll be awesome.
If you have not read her books, get them now. Lost Stars, hands down, best book in my opinion of the Star Wars books. But that's just me. Or Bloodline's just as good. So.
Bloodline's a little more mature, but yes, both excellent books. Yep.
Lost Stars has mature themes in it later on.
Bloodlines. I'm just saying Bloodline's way more mature. Yes.
Yeah. Second one, A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. I forget what she
has a few other ones. I think she does young adult.
Did she do Spark? I think she did
Spark of the Resistance. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't recognize her name as much. I mean,
she's good. That was good. It's a little bit like aimed at a younger audience, but they're good. She's a very good writer.
Next one, The High Republic Adventures by Daniel Jose Older. Mm-hmm.
He wrote Last Shot, which was awesome. So I'm looking forward to that one too.
Let's see, and then The High Republic by Kevin Scott. I believe that's the comic book.
Yep.
And Kevin Scott, he wrote Dooku Jedi Lost, which was an awesome
really good
book.
Yep. No, they got the best of the best from the Star Wars stuff so far. Yeah.
And then The High Republic Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. That's how you say his last name.
Yep. And he's done a ton of comic stuff.
Yep. Yeah, he's still doing a bunch of comic stuff, actually.
Yep, some of the Bounty Hunter or Vader or something.
Yep, he's doing the Bounty Hunters. He's doing the Vader one, and then I think is he doing Kylo Ren? I think he
was he. maybe.
I think so. I'll check that
I'm
out.
bad with comics. I'm new to the comic thing just for Star Wars, so I always forget to look at like the authors and stuff.
Yeah, it's Charles. Yeah, it's Charles.
Okay.
Yeah, I was right. Okay. So I don't have in front of me the release dates of these books. I don't know if you know them off the top of your head.
No.
Let me see if I have it. But so what do you think of the covers? Because that's the only thing that we really have for details, unless you've read more.
The
Because I
cover,
haven't seen anything.
yeah. So I'll lay out a little bit. So basically, the my understanding of what I've seen is that it's happening roughly 200 years before the Phantom Menace. A little close in my initial opinion, but I will hold off any kind of major criticism until we start to get into it because they've planned it out and they've gone a long way with this. So I'm sure they have it all figured out. I just feel like with the total different look and how they explain like the Jedi kind of expanding out into the unknown regions and kind of settling the Republic and that kind of thing, it just seems like it would be further back than 200 years, but I'm sure we will find out more. So it's roughly 200 years. It's kind of explained as this is the golden age of the Jedi. They're much more kind of like those explorers, peacekeepers, kind of going out into the galaxy.
Like Texas Rangers.
Yeah, more than the generals and the kind of the way that they ended up at the end, which isn't, you know what I mean? Kind of what we thought of them, or thought they were going to be, kind of before the prequels came out.
Yep.
Which is cool. You look at a lot of the art. There is some really neat. There are tons of different species, which is awesome. Some of the ones we've seen a bunch of times, like Zabrax and Twi'leks, and obviously humans. There's just so many different. I'm looking. I don't have any of the art in front of me. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But there's tons of different aliens. Tons of different looks like ages. And all kinds of different stuff. So we're going to see a Wookiee Jedi, right? We see a lot of the cross guard kind of things.
So that's the first book, by the way. Light of the Jedi is the first one releasing on August 25th.
Gotcha. Okay. Looks like kind of like Knights of the Round Table kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So it'll be really neat. In one picture, I'll have to pull it up. It's like the Jedi are all lined up. And they all have most of them have their lightsabers out. And there's a bunch of unique lightsabers. We got some double-sided. We got the hilted ones. But there's two really unique ones. And I think they're on the ends. I don't have it in front of me. One is it looks almost white, but it looks like a double-bladed lightsaber, both heading in the same direction. Kind of like the Rey's evil force thing vision, right? Where she lights both, but then she opens it into a true saber staff kind of thing. This is she's holding, I think it's like a female Twi'lek, if I remember correctly. She's holding it, and there's just two blades coming straight out of the same hilt, which looks really unique. And then it looks like a black lightsaber on the other side.
It's not a Twi'lek.
Oh, okay. But it is two heading in the same direction, right? Yep. And it looks like it's the same lightsaber. And then
I don't know what species that is. It's a different. It might be actually a woman, so it might just be human.
Okay. And then on the other side, there's one that looks like a darksaber. It looks like a black lightsaber, and it has a lot of them have different. The hilt looks like it goes down kind of odd, but yeah. So a bunch of different colors. Obviously, the art's in a certain style right now. So as we move from phase 1 and we get into some the comics will be interesting, right? Because that'll be art based, but the books obviously will just have covers and some basic stuff. But it'll be. I'm super interested to see where the aesthetic goes after phase 1, right? So after the comics and maybe when we get a video game or a TV series, once we kind of get into some more media, special visual media, I'm very interested to see where they go with this aesthetic because a lot of them are wearing very white and gold, very regal looking. You know what I mean? Outfits, and the lightsabers are all over the place, which is awesome. That's what I remember from when I first got into Star Wars with the Young Jedi Knight series, where they all built their own lightsaber and they were this is before the whole crystal thing. Which I don't mind. I like the new canon crystal thing. It makes it simple and it makes it kind of the way it just gives it structure. But in the Young Jedi Knight thing, they used all kinds of stuff for their blades, and they got unique colors like purple, and Tenel Ka used a stone from her homeworld that gave it a turquoisey white glow. And again, these are readings, so it's all in your mind. You know what I mean? I think Lobaka had a yellow lightsaber. I mean, it was really neat the way that they did that. So this reminds me of that it's kind of like this was the height of the Jedi. So there's all different kinds of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if there's maybe the beginnings or different versions of the fighting styles that you learn a little bit about in canon, like Form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there's 7. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. Is fascinating to me. Again, all this stuff is also why I'm kind of a little bit weirded out at first that it's only 200 years, because it seems like in the Star Wars galaxy, you'd need more time to get from this aesthetic to what it looks like in the Phantom Menace. But again, you know, that's also like a fairy tale thing, kind of, right? Because there's so much, it's so far away, and it seems space age that 200 years doesn't seem like a long time, but you look at, you know, real world, like 200 years ago, how different did it look here in real, you know what I mean? In the real world, totally different.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
so, you know, a lot can change. And, so we'll see. I'm super excited. So what do you got? I mean, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I just don't, I guess for me, I don't, you know, I guess I'm not thinking about it as much at this point. I'm kind of just, you know,
letting it come,
just like, just waiting for, you know, what they'll release and everything. I mean, I do find it interesting that it is 200 years before the prequels. I mean, I really want Knights of the Old Republic type stuff, so it kind of looks like they're heading in that direction, which is good. So but yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, I'm interested to see what the comics are as well. I'm actually more excited about the comics because that's gonna have visual. It'll look a lot different rather than reading it.
Yeah, they'll help, actually. I wish the comic came out first, because then sometimes with that, like, at least you get the base vision of what they're thinking these things look like the different people and stuff. And then when you read, you can you know, basically what I'm saying is when I read the book, I'm going to be thinking of the art that came out when they say stuff about certain people and certain Jedi and the way stuff looks. And that always helps. But I almost kind of wish the comic came out first, just in case there's any carryover characters. So as I'm creating it in my mind when I'm reading it, like, I have it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's I'm kind of intrigued by the yellow lightsaber. It looks like someone that, well, it doesn't look like Plo Koon, but
no, there's no Keldor in the pictures, but I hope there will
be. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep.
What was I gonna say?
Keldorian?
You know, Yoda.
Sorry.
Maybe.
Keldor, I think, is the planet, and they're I don't know if they're Keldor or Keldorian. I'll look it up later. Not important. Yeah.
I was gonna say Yoda,
Yoda species.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Or Yoda being. I mean, Yoda is alive during this time period.
Yep.
So hopefully we get to see him. I mean,
Yaddle Yoda.
Yeah. Well, and maybe some of the other Jedi Council as well. So
we'll have to look into the ages of the Jedi Council. I bet there are some that are.
I'm more intrigued on that too. Yeah, to see how they tie into each other. Like how does this era shape what happens in the prequels? Like what happens here that's gonna make, because by the prequels, the council's like super arrogant. They're very holier than thou.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of 200 years, and you figure Jedi live longer than their average species. So let's just say like a human Jedi lives to like 150, you know, if he doesn't get killed. Only being 200 years before, it will be interesting if they pull a lot of names from some of the old canon, because some of the old comics, this is when the canon was all over the place, but like, I believe they have comics of people who were like Yoda's master, and like, not, I know he's older, but I'm saying like some of the like Mace Windu's master or whatever, like you'll get into the phase where like if it's 200 years before, you could think that some of those Jedi from those comics and stuff, some of the names could have been alive during this period. You know what I mean? And maybe we're younger, like the Kruk guy, or that's a Whippet. There's all kinds of names, but like that'll be interesting. I didn't even think about that, because that'll be right in the middle there, right?
Yep.
They could be young at this point.
Like Kai Mundi is another
How
one.
old is he? Yeah, we should look these ages up.
I mean, Mace Windu, like we don't even know if he's like.
I think they have
doubt.
ages, but yeah, I don't know them off the top of my head. But you could very well think that maybe the guy who trained Mace Windu is a Padawan in this series. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I think if they do that, I would imagine they would have to connect some of that. That will definitely bring in.
A ton of options. That's where I get super fuzzy about canon and what I read in the expanded universe, like prequel stuff. Like that's like I don't know in canon who they have as like Yoda's master, if they have it, or Mace Windu's master. I'm pretty sure those things are in some of the EUs I used to read, but I don't think that was canon, and I don't know that they ever confirmed or denied it. So it'd be interesting to see if they bring that stuff back.
Yeah, I think
they must have done the Mace Windu, because didn't they do like a Mace Windu comic where it flashes back?
I don't remember a flashback.
Age of Republic.
I've read that recently,
and it doesn't flash back.
No, I don't think so.
I thought it flashed back.
Let me double check because
if that's the case, then that's canon. But that's where I'm saying I get confused because there's a billion. I'll have to look. What were they? The Dark Horse comics that were like the Stark Hyperspace War and stuff like that.
Was it?
Like Plukone was invested in that. Like there's that whole thing. I don't think that's canon anymore. That's where I get confused.
Yeah, no, it does have Sislin Mir. I forgot about.
Okay, so yeah, but stuff like that. Some of that is going to be non-canon too. There's a bunch of that stuff that's non-canon. So it'll be super interesting to see if they bring that back. Yeah, or touch on it.
But it'd be interesting to see, like if she. Let's see. Oh, so she was in that. Okay, so she was in the flashback. You were right. So I must have.
Yeah, but I'm saying just like that one was off the top of my mind. But there were other ones there were other comics that got into other Jedi prequel era that I don't think were canon. So it'll be interesting to see if they make those canon or take slight variations on them.
Yeah, it's just I'm very intrigued on how this shapes the prequels. Like what happens in this time period that's gonna.
Yeah, it's only 200 years, like we talked about. Yeah. Like a lot has to happen for the way that they're describing. Like they're still expanding into the outer regions, and where we are in the prequels, the Republic is this grand Republic that's huge, and you know what I mean. Yeah. So.
But there's nothing on. The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed on, and I'm sure it'll come out soon, but. There's not a lot of Sith stuff. So, I mean, there's nothing there yet, but I am intrigued too. Like, I want more Sith stuff.
Yeah.
As we've talked about, like, so it's interesting to see how this works.
It will. They announced the bad guy. The main villains are going to be the Nile, which seem like they're a mixed race, like all different species. They call them like punk rock in the space or something like that. Punk rock Vikings, I think is what they said. But it'll be interesting to see. I think I read, and this is probably a leak, not something that they said, but I believe they said their game is like they have some kind of hyperspace thing where they can like block hyperspace lanes or do something with hyperspace lanes, and that's why they're a big problem for the Jedi. So it'll be interesting to see if that's kind of like a thing where if the Jedi are out exploring and these guys basically do the thing where like they go, okay, a Jedi's going here, they shut off the hyperlane back so no help can come and they can't escape, and then group up and hunt Jedi. Like that, because they said something. I think they said that they're not force sensitive. So it's not like they're a group of like dark Jedi. So they got to be using numbers or some kind of thing they're not going to just like, it's not going to be all out warfare like Jedi versus droids, you know what I mean? They wouldn't last. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Sith are behind the scenes, right? I mean, at this point they got to be in hiding because, Yoda said they haven't been seen in 1,000 years or something like that, or hundreds of years, whatever he says in Phantom Menace, the end with Mace. So they can't, even if they're behind it, they can't at all be obvious, right? Like no one's gonna see them, or. That's not true. They could do the Bane thing where like the Jedi do actually go somewhere to hunt something. the trail of them, but they don't think it's Sith, and Bane and Xana kill them. Yeah. So like that could happen. One Jedi could disappear and no one knows where he went, and maybe he was on the trail kind of thing, or he or she was on the trail. So they could do something like that, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
There's got to be something with the Sith, right? They're just not going to be the big bad, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because I think we need to get away from that. Especially if we eventually go Old Republic, where hopefully we'll get there and get to like full on Jedi, Sith, Old Wars kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So we'll leave that for then, because obviously they're going to focus on the Nile for now. And like we said, Yoda said they haven't been seen in whatever he says, 1,000 years or 1,000 generations, 100 generations or whatever. Which means they cannot show up in this to the general public, at least.
Right. And if they do, then we got fucking explaining to do.
Yeah, I hope they don't. Don't tread on that line. I'm fine with like one Jedi thinking and pitching the council, and they're like, "Nah, dude, nothing's out there," and then he disappears. But even that's like, then wouldn't they think about it? It has to be covered up pretty well, you know.
Or it could be, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it has to be covered up.
Just because of the way Yoda says it, and he was around during this time, and he says it like the Sith, like, you're saying the Sith are back, like, like they've been gone forever. No one's even mentioned them, so like you can't really even get close, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they don't change that.
Yeah, they'll be all right with it.
Yeah, I hope so.
There's no movies, so they're not dealing with the money people.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, not in phase 1, so there's going to be a whole phase of it before they can fuck it up. So that's good.
Well, I guess the next movie will be 2022, supposedly. So
this could, the way it looks though, this could make awesome video games, though, right?
Yeah,
like Western Ranger, like going out and exploring new worlds, like as a lone Jedi, getting trapped and hunted on different planets. Like this could be awesome.
I did see the rumor was saying that the video game leak was actually related to this, but
well, that'd be I don't hold your breath, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
well, they specifically said phase 1 was all publishing, so that would seem like they would go back on their word for that, but who knows?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But
I'm completely fine if they go back on their word and there's an awesome video game that comes out. That's fine.
Well, yeah, if they give us a new video game that's not fucking, I don't know, Battlefront shitbox. I don't know. I want to know the Battlefront though. It's just as long as it's not.
They'll keep making Battlefronts forever.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, is that all we got? That was a long episode.
That was a really long episode. So. Everyone, if you haven't looked up the details or seen anything in Project Luminous, or the High Republic, I should say now, go check it out. I mean, it's all over the place. There's a lot of pictures of the book covers. So, and if you have not read any of the author's previous works, definitely check it out. I mean, like we mentioned, there was Lost Stars, Bloodline by Claudia Gray, and then you have Dooku Jedi Lost. Try to think. Charles Soule, he, like we were mentioning, he does the comics with Kylo Ren. Yeah, he's big into that. So definitely check him out. Other than that, thank you for listening to another episode of the Podawan podcast. Make sure to check us out on YouTube and all our podcast streaming services. Until the next episode, later, Podawans.
Later.